Chiefs win the Super Bowl.
Chiefs win. Cry, Eagles, cry.
Great, excited to be back in the week.
You know, every day I got the Three Stooges in the studio with me is a good fucking day.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So let's make sure he gets that bag.
F-R-A-U-D-S, fries! Woo!
Justin's way ahead in picks. That's all that you need to fucking know.
Show's over.
Show's over. We're going home. I would like to welcome you back to another page of the Playbook Sports Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to 32 NFL offseasons in 32 days. Yesterday, we talked about the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Today, let's talk about another AFC West team, a team that many had high hopes for going into last season that sputtered pretty fast. Let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. What a change a year can make. Think about it. This time last year, Davante Adams was on his way to Las Vegas to play with, quote, another Hall of Fame quarterback in Derek Carr. And the Raiders fans were going to bed, dreaming of going toe-to-toe with the Chiefs for the AFC West. Fast forward a year. And, yes, Josh McDaniel is still the head coach there, but that Hall of Fame quarterback that Davante was going to get to play with, yeah, he's gone, and they brought in Jimmy G. I will say Jimmy Garoppolo does have some familiarity with the system that McDaniel runs, although he hasn't been a part of a McDaniel team in a long time. But he should have some form of familiarity. Obviously, the hope is that he really won't miss much of a beat, and he'll be able to command it at least better than Derek Carr could last year. Other additions that I really like from the Raiders, one of my favorite backup quarterbacks, baby, Brian Hoyer, getting another shot. I like him for no other reason than it really seems like he always ends up on the field for his team at one point or another. You sign Brian Hoyer, you can just go ahead and lock in like a couple game injury to your starting quarterback. I hope it doesn't happen. It just seems like that. It seems like there's always a week where you look at the starting quarterbacks for two teams and Brian Hoyer's name is listed for one of them. It's weird. I've always rooted for him. I jokingly call him Brady Hoyer. For the longest time, I thought his first name was Brady. I don't know why. It just fit him. Other additions I like. I like what they did at the tight end room. I like Austin Hooper. I like O.J. Howard. And when we talk about their key losses, we'll talk about a tight end that they let walk. But I think that those two together will be really solid, along with who they brought in. That we'll talk about a little bit later. And then I also like the Jacoby Myers ad. He might have been a double agent for them last year, although the win against the Patriots didn't end up meaning anything for the Raiders, except it meant the whole world for the Patriots, kept them out of the playoffs on that awesome lateral play where he threw it right to Chandler Jones in stride. Chandler Jones puts Mac Jones in the dirt. Future Nate, roll the clip.
Stanford band nowhere in sight. Uh-oh, it's picked off. Uh-oh, oh no, unbelievable.
But outside of that, I think Myers will be a solid add to that wide receiver room. As far as losses go, obviously they've moved on from longtime signal caller Derek Carr, who clearly fell out of favor with Josh McDaniel last year. I just don't think he was the right fit for their system, which is crazy because is that the system then? Because if you're throwing the ball to guys like Darren Waller, Davante Adams, Hunter Renfrow, and it's not working, is it the system that's wrong? I don't know. We'll see this year when we got Jimmy Garoppolo trying to run it. They also traded away tight end Darren Waller, who not all that long ago was considered a top 5 tight end in the NFL. Just had some trouble staying on the field and then wasn't getting a whole lot of looks. I don't mind the trade, especially when we talk about the draft. They also let former first-round pick Clelin Ferrell go, getting a pretty cheap deal with San Francisco. And then kind of a low-key loss that I think is going to kind of hurt a little more than you may think was losing Rocky Sin, who they had gotten, I believe, in the trade with the Colts for Yannick Ngakoue. They didn't add any early corners in this draft. Their cornerback room is pretty bad. And in the AFC West, man, if you don't have good corners, you're in some serious trouble. And then obviously, I think, in my opinion, the most devastating loss for the Las Vegas Raiders this offseason, legendary wide receiver Mac Hollins moving on. That will haunt this franchise for years to come. Mac Hollins, personal favorite of mine. The guy's just a baller, okay? But let's talk about their draft. Because when you look at the Raiders and you talk about the Raiders, they're synonymous with drafting busts. They just are. I'll go through the list here in just a moment. But you know what? This draft, I really do like what they did. I would have bet a lot of money that Will Levis was the pick at number 7, especially with Levis still on the board. I thought for sure that was going to be Mr. Will Levis. But apparently we all got it wrong. I didn't like Will Levis. I just want to say that. I was not a big Will Levis guy. I didn't even know if he'd go. I mean, I figured because he's a quarterback, he'll go early, but I didn't think the talent was there. I didn't think the tape was there. And apparently a lot of the NFL GMs agreed with that because he was pretty far down on their team's boards. But at number 7, going with Tyree Wilson, there were some guys out there that had Tyree Wilson just as good, if not even a little bit better than Will Anderson, which seems crazy to me because Will Anderson was my number 1 player in the class. But Tyree Wilson at 7 is great value in my opinion. I didn't see him sliding that far personally. He has all of the measurables that you could want at defensive end. 6'6", 280 pounds with super long arms, and the guy's an absolute freak athlete. And he also had good production at Texas Tech. Not a team known for their good defenses, and he went out and put up 14 sacks his last 2 years. That's very, very solid. I think this was honestly a great first pick by them, especially when you put it in the context of their last 8 first-round choices, you guys. This list is painful. Not including Tyree Wilson, their last 8 first-round picks. Alex Leatherwood, not on the team. Damon Arnett, not on the team. Henry Ruggs, in jail. Jonathan Abram, Josh Jacobs, Colin Farrell, gone. Colton Miller, who I believe just walked or is somewhere else. And Garyon Conley. Yikes. That is a brutal list of first-round picks. They had a year where they had 3 first-round picks, and their only good one really was Josh Jacobs. And they took Colin Farrell at 4, and they just let him walk for nothing. This is not a team that has good draft history, but it seems like they changed something up with their philosophy this past season, in my opinion. I also love their second-round pick of Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer. So long, Darren Waller. We're going to get a cheap replacement who is going to outproduce you. I think Michael Mayer was the best tight end in the draft, and I think we started to get a little bit of prospect fatigue with him because it was just a known that he was the best tight end in this class. And then we started watching Dalton Kincaid tape, and everyone started falling in love with him. The fact that Michael Mayer fell to the second round is just crazy to me. And then the fact that he was the 3rd tight end off the board, absurd. Absurd in my opinion. Michael Mayer's awesome. He can block, he can catch, he does it all. Love that pick. And then I really like their 3rd round pick as well, Byron Young. He's a run-stuffing defensive tackle. You can't have enough of those. And, I don't mind that on the defensive side of the ball. They need help everywhere. They really do. I mean, 2 picks in the first 3 rounds in the defensive line to pair up with Max Crosby. I really like that a lot. And don't sleep on Aiden O'Connell, quarterback out of Purdue. His processing ability that I saw when I watched some of their games, he processes fast, man. That's what you want to see. I don't know off the top of my head, and I didn't look it up. I probably should have looked it up. I wonder what his S2 score was, or if that is even available public knowledge, because I bet it was high. I bet he processed that really well, super accurate, and he was very, very efficient in college. Those are hard traits to teach. Those are things that you want to have coming out. You want to have those traits, and then you can coach up everything else and figure everything else out. Being able to process, that's tough to do, and he was doing it at a high level. I really do think the Raiders had a strong draft, talking about at least those picks that I've mentioned here. And in that, I'm going to give them an A-, honestly. Considering they got 2 first-round talents without having to move around the board, they stood pat, they got Tyree Wilson to fall to them. Love the pick. I really do like their draft. A-. So overall, this offseason, I think that if you asked Raiders, what would we call this offseason, they would probably say, we did some retooling. They swapped out quarterbacks, completely revamped their tight end room, and didn't, unfortunately, really do a whole lot to move the needle for me. I still think that they're a tier below the Chargers for the 2nd best team in the division, and they will spend most of the season battling it out with Denver for last place in the division, sadly. This offseason was like trading out an apple for another apple, maybe? I guess. All right, great. Got another apple. Fantastic. Doesn't do a whole lot. I do like their draft, but we also should not forget that this is the Las Vegas Raiders, and they have messed up every pick that they have made recently. So I'm interested to watch how this group does in the coming seasons. I'll be real excited to watch just how good Michael Mayer is, just how good Tyree Wilson is, and then maybe I can give it a better grade at that point. But with an A- draft, I give them an overall off-season grade of a B. Solid B. Nothing spectacular, but solid. And then let's talk about what kind of team they are. This time last year, you guys, go watch our first podcast ever if you still can. I was saying the whole time the Raiders are not going to be as good as people think that they are because I do not believe in Josh McDaniel as a head coach. I just don't. And that has only been confirmed for me with his stints as a head coach. They should have never let Rich Bisaccia leave after he saved their 2021 season, getting them to the playoffs. I do think the Raiders think that they want to compete, but they won't. They just won't. They're just not as good as the other top teams in the AFC. I think that the Raiders are not too far away from a blow it up and rebuild moment, and that'll be a tough time for the Raiders fans to adjust to. So that's all I've got for you guys on today's episode of 32 NFL Offseasons in 32 days. We will be back at it tomorrow with day number 18.